The Franco-Prussian War of 1870–71 stands as one of the most transformative conflicts of the 19th century, shaping not only the political map of Europe, but also the very methods by which wars would be fought in the industrial age. The origins of this war lay deep in the political rivalries that had defined European power struggles for centuries, particularly between France and the various German states. Throughout the 18th and early 19th centuries, German lands were fragmented, divided among powerful states such as Austria, Prussia, Bavaria, and numerous smaller duchies. France had long exploited this disunity to assert its dominance on the continent. Yet by the mid-19th century, Prussia, under the guidance of its brilliant and ruthless chancellor, Otto von Bismarck, sought to overturn this balance by unifying the German states into one powerful empire. Bismarck recognized that a confrontation with France, the leading continental power, would be inevitable if Prussia's ambitions were to be realized. To bind the South German states to the North German Confederation, a common external enemy was required, and France was the obvious candidate. The immediate pretext for war came in the form of the Spanish succession crisis. When the Spanish throne was offered to Leopold, a cousin of King William I of Prussia, France feared encirclement by a Hohenzollern on both its northern and southern borders. French opposition forced Leopold's withdrawal, but France pressed further, demanding that Prussia never again support a Hohenzollern candidate. King William politely refused this humiliating condition and relayed his account of the conversation to Bismarck through a telegram from the spa town of Ems. Bismarck, seizing the opportunity, edited the telegram, the famous Ems dispatch, to make it appear as though the French ambassador Benedetti had been brusquely dismissed and insulted. When published on July 14, 1870, France's national holiday, the document inflamed public opinion in Paris. Outrage swept through France, and 5 days later, under pressure from nationalist sentiment and the prestige of Napoleon III's regime, France declared war on Prussia. The war that followed was not merely the product of wounded pride, but of decades of rivalry, Bismarck's manipulations, and Napoleon III's desperate desire to restore French glory. It was also a clash between two military systems, a French army clinging to Napoleonic traditions but hindered by poor planning and outdated artillery, and a Prussian force modernized by railways, breech-loading Krupp artillery, and an efficient general staff system under Helmuth von Moltke. Thus began a war that would last only months, but reshape the destiny of Europe. When war broke out in July 1870, both sides mobilized rapidly, though with starkly different levels of preparation. France entered the war with approximately 240,000 men in its initial field army, equipped with the advanced Chassepot rifle and the secretive mitrailleuse machine gun. On paper, these weapons gave the French infantry a technical advantage. The Chassepot outperformed the Prussian Dreyse needle gun in both range and accuracy, while the mitrailleuse, essentially a primitive machine gun, had the potential to decimate advancing infantry. However, France's military strength was undermined by poor organization, a lack of coherent strategy, and the emperor's decision to lead the army personally without adequate preparation. By contrast, Prussia mobilized nearly 460,000 men within weeks, thanks largely to its railway system and meticulous planning by the general staff. Helmuth von Moltke had spent years preparing for war against France, drawing lessons from Prussia's victory over Austria in 1866. Railways allowed the Prussians to concentrate their forces quickly at decisive points, while Krupp's steel breech-loading artillery provided devastating firepower. The first clashes demonstrated both the strengths and weaknesses of each side. At Saarbrücken on August 2nd, the French launched an early offensive, but failed to follow up their gains. Within days, Prussian counterattacks under Crown Prince Frederick William inflicted defeats at Worth and Spicheren. Despite heavy casualties inflicted by the Chassepot, the French commanders proved unable to coordinate effectively. At Grave-la-Stee, Privat on August 18th, one of the largest battles of the war, the French inflicted terrible losses on attacking German forces, but their rigid command structure and reluctance to seize the initiative allowed Malta to encircle them. The decisive moment came at Sedan on September 1st, where Napoleon III and 100,000 of his troops were trapped and forced to surrender. The sight of French soldiers piling their arms and Napoleon himself handing his sword to King William symbolized the total collapse of the Second Empire. In just 6 weeks, the heart of the French army was destroyed. Yet the war did not end there. A new Third Republic was proclaimed in Paris, and French resistance continued. The Germans laid siege to Paris in September, surrounding the capital and bombarding it through the autumn and winter. Inside, civilians endured starvation, disease, and bombardment, while French forces outside attempted desperate relief efforts, all of which were repelled. Meanwhile, the Prussians demonstrated the future of warfare. Systematic use of industrial capacity, rapid troop movements by rail, and reliance on firepower to wear down the enemy. By January 1871, Paris surrendered, and the French were forced to sign an armistice. The war's course revealed not only the military superiority of Prussia, but also the emergence of modern warfare, where planning, logistics, and industrial might mattered as much as bravery on the battlefield. The consequences of the Franco-Prussian War were immense, both immediate and long-term. For France, defeat was catastrophic. The fall of Sedan toppled Napoleon III and ended the Second Empire, while the proclamation of the Third Republic did little to heal the nation's humiliation. Worse still, France was forced to cede Alsace and Lorraine to the newly proclaimed German Empire, a loss that would fester in French memory and fuel resentment for decades. The humiliation of 1871 was compounded by the Paris Commune, the radical socialist uprising that broke out during the German siege and was brutally suppressed by French troops, leaving deep scars in French political life. For Germany, the war achieved Bismarck's ultimate goal. On January 18, 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, King William I of Prussia was proclaimed German Emperor. The unification of Germany under Prussian leadership transformed the balance of power in Europe. No longer a patchwork of small states, Germany emerged as a formidable continental power with a strong army, advanced industry, and a growing sense of national unity. The victory also reinforced the Prussian model of militarism and efficiency, shaping German politics for decades to come. Beyond immediate political shifts, the war influenced the very nature of warfare. Observers from across Europe noted how railways, breech-loading artillery, and coordinated staff planning had secured German success, while French reliance on outdated doctrines led to disaster. The lessons of 1870 would echo into the 20th century, shaping strategies in World War I, where the emphasis on rapid mobilization, firepower, and attritional warfare would dominate. The Franco-Prussian War also left unresolved tensions. France's desire for revanche, or revenge, over the loss of Alsace-Lorraine became a central theme in its foreign policy, contributing to the alliance system that ultimately led to World War I. Meanwhile, Germany's new dominance upset the European balance of power, sparking rivalry with Britain and fear in Russia. In short, the Franco-Prussian War was more than a short conflict. It was the catalyst for a new era in European history. It marked the end of French dominance, the birth of a united Germany, and the dawn of modern, industrialized warfare. Its legacy was felt not only in the ashes of Sedan or the streets of Paris, but also in the trenches of the Marne and Verdun decades later.